Okay, so thank you welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We'd like to start off by saying that we're really excited to start our very first webinar in our annual series, ACT Webinars for Healthcare Professionals, brought to you by Ingenovis Health. Ingenovis Health is the corporate and parent company to Fast Staff, True Staff, US Nursing, Cardio Solution, Healthcare Support, Vista Staffing Solutions, and Springboard Health. We are excited to connect you with industry and thought leaders from various backgrounds and locations in hopes of introducing you to ways of creating better health practices and habits in 2023. Before we get started, I'd like to share with you a little bit about what the ACT program is. The ACT program was created in direct response to the voice of clinicians, our frontline nurses, physicians, and allied health professionals. With so many of us leaving the healthcare profession, facing violence, feeling unsupported, and dealing with mental health challenges, we create programs and initiatives based on advocacy, providing career support with opportunities for growth, and tools to shape improved well-being and work-life balance. We hope that you will join us each month as we explore positive ways to connect, coexist, and collaborate across professions. Now I'd like to introduce you to our first speaker. Dr. Dena Samuels serves as a mindfulness-based diversity, equity, and inclusion author, speaker, leadership coach, and consultant. She is an award-winning tenured professor at the University of Colorado for over 20 years. She now consults and coaches full-time on mindful, inclusive leadership development. She has authored several books and many other publications. Her latest book, The Mindfulness Effect, An Unexpected Path to Healing, Connection, and Social Justice, offers 25 mindfulness practices for health and wellness, self-empowerment, culturally inclusive leadership development, social and environmental justice. Dr. Samuels, the platform is yours.
Thank you so much. It is such an honor and a pleasure to be here today. Thank you for having me. I'm honored to be your inaugural speaker as well. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. If that's okay. Yeah, all good. You can see that? Good. Great. Okay, so this is me, and feel free, for anybody who's interested, feel free to check out my website. We can talk about that later too. There's lots of free resources that you can download and all of that online there. So I'd love to start by thinking, whoops, I actually clicked on it, which I didn't mean to do. That is my website. I'm welcoming everybody, and I'm going to invite everybody into the space to bring your attention here. And when you think about just taking a deep breath as you inhale, just think about all of what's been going on the whole day. And as you exhale, see if you can let go of whatever else is going on. It'll be available to you when we're done here in an hour, whenever we conclude. But in the meantime, I'd love for you to focus your attention with me here. We've got a lot to cover. And I want to also be able to answer all your questions or any questions that come up along the way. I'm inviting an openness here, being open to new ideas. I'm also inviting you to engage. I am somebody who really, I've been doing this work around mindfulness and specifically social justice for almost 25 years now. And I am, my style is very much of a participatory style. So I invite you to engage, to ask questions along the way, and then we'll have a Q&A at the end as well. Let's see. I'm also going to invite you. Well, actually, since it's a webinar, we will have our cameras on when we're speaking. I guess that's how it'll be. Usually, I like folks to interact and see their cameras on. I like, from a social justice standpoint, oh, well, you launched the poll? Okay. Yeah, it would be wonderful to see where folks are in terms of how familiar you are with mindfulness. So we'll give you a moment for that.
And folks, if you'd like to ask a question as we go along or address Dr. Samuels, please feel free to use the Q&A section. That'll go straight to our panelists, okay?
Okay, so it looks like, do we want to, we have a fair amount of people have responded. Do you want to go ahead and put up the poll so everyone can see?
We're sharing the poll. About 63% are a little but open to learn about mindfulness, and 28% would love to hear more. 10% are not familiar, but also very interested.
Okay, great. Perfect. Okay, good to know. Okay, let's, well, we can actually even share the results too, so folks can see that. And then we're going to go ahead and get out of that for a moment. That's good to know where we're coming from, like who's in the room, so to speak, right? From a social justice standpoint, I just want to share that I acknowledge the lands that I'm on, which are Piscataway lands, and the stolen land that I'm on. And if that's a question in terms of acknowledgement, land acknowledgement of why I would be sharing that, feel free. On my website, I actually have a handout under resources that explains the land acknowledgement and why that's important. And I invite you, if you don't know whose land you are on, to go to this website, native-land.ca, and you can find out whose land you're on. At least it's roughly, it's a good approximation of stolen lands. So around the world, it focuses a lot on the U.S., but there are Turtle Island as it were. But it's very important, I think, to know whose land, we are on. It's an important aspect. So I'm going to invite folks to share in the chat. I assume everyone has access to the chat. Is that accurate?
The Q&A panel.
Oh, just the Q&A. Yep. Okay. So in the Q&A panel, if you could, when you hear the word mindfulness, what comes up for you? What kinds of, like, if you were trying to explain it to somebody, what are some words that you might think about or might come to mind? So feel free to jot those down. Thank you in the Q&A panel. Being present, attention to present. Thank you. Mindfulness is present in the moment, centered. Very good. Anyone else? Acting and not reacting. Great, Chris. That's excellent. Yeah, what else do we have? Being present in a present moment, being self-aware, peaceful. Thanks, Emmy. Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. So here's one of the ways I like to think about it, and this really gets out what Chris was talking about, acting and not reacting. Some of you may have heard Viktor Frankl or have seen this quote before, and I just love it. It is this, that between stimulus and response is a space, and in that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. So there's, between stimulus and response, there's this space of mindfulness, that is mindful attention that can be the difference between our reacting to something and responding to something with a much more healthy and wholehearted, and it turns out, equitable solution. So these are some of the things to think about When I think about mindfulness also, I think it's important to consider where mindfulness came from. So we think about Eastern philosophy, Eastern practices. We think about religious beginnings. Mindfulness came from. There are some native tribes that also use, they may not call it mindfulness, but it's got very robust beginnings. Mindfulness, and it was brought to the westernized, I call it westernized world, not that long ago, like within the last, half a century, really. In the 50s, 60s, 70s, it was brought to the United States anyway. And it has sort of taken on a life of its own here, but it's always important, especially so that we don't culturally appropriate the notion of mindfulness. We want to always honor where it came from, right? So some other ways to think about it is, some people think about it as a religious practice, and it may be for some. For others, it may be a spiritual practice. It happens to be a spiritual practice for me, but it might be simply paying attention, putting your focus on the present moment awareness, as some of you put in the Q&A chat. And all of those are under the umbrella of mindfulness. And so there's no right or wrong here. It's really what speaks to you, okay? And what your background is, or what you are excited about, what calls to you. So the other piece about this is, when we think about mindfulness, it's also noticing what's going on and trying to let go of our judgment. So oftentimes we are taught certain ideas, perhaps sometimes stereotypes in our culture a lot. We get in westernized world, we get a lot of stereotypes. The idea is, when we get those stereotypes, are we going to act on those stereotypes, or are we going to pause and respond without judgment, right? So there's a whole bunch of stuff that's going on in between both the present moment and how we're interacting with others. And that's how social justice comes about when we think about being mindful in our interactions with others. So this will make more sense as we go. I'm just sort of throwing some ideas out there that might be helpful for your understanding of how this all works, right? One very well-known focus or organization really is insight meditation, which is known as Vipassana. And this is really focusing on the breath. And we will do that in just a moment. Before we get to practicing ourselves, I wanted to just share with you, some of you may be familiar with MBSR, which is mindfulness-based stress reduction. And John Kabat-Zinn is pretty well known at least in the United States, but really all over the world. He has done a tremendous amount of research he's at UMass Medical School, University of Massachusetts. And he has lots of books out there and all of this. And he is a MD, and he has done a ton of research, putting electrodes to brains and all of this to really show where to create mindfulness-based or evidence-based mindfulness practices. And so he calls this MBSR, and it if you were to do a Google search in Google Scholar, let's say, you would get over 650,000 scholarly articles showing the benefits of mindfulness. So when you consider that, right, this has become such a large, it just keeps building what mindfulness can do for us in terms of our health and wellness. And we're going to practice that, as I said, in a few minutes. But I think it's really important to understand how important just focusing on our breath, or pausing for a moment, or any of the mindfulness practices that we'll talk about, how important it is for your health and wellness, right? For all of us, for human beings. So these are some ways that mindfulness shows up. Like these are some ways that mindfulness, journaling is mindfulness. We can think about traditional meditation. I often get the question, what's the difference between meditation and mindfulness? And the way I look at it is mindfulness, or I should say meditation, is one of many ways you can practice mindfulness. So most people have at some point in their lives journaled, done some free writing in a journal. And that's considered a mindfulness practice because you're really focusing on the present moment. It's sort of any time you are in the zone, you might hear those words. You know, maybe you're doing some artwork, or you're going for a run, or you're going for a walk out in nature. Maybe you have some grounding practices. I always talk about, you know, this non-traditional meditation. You can do it as you're waiting for the light, you know, the traffic light to turn from red to green. You can take a breath. You're in line waiting at the grocery store. You can take a breath. These are ways that mindfulness play out in our lives, and that we can bring mindfulness into our lives. So I'm going to pause here and ask for the next poll, the second question that we have. So, and the question is, do you have a mindfulness practice? So apparently, because nursing students are required to complete practice journals, I would imagine many folks here have actually done some sort of journaling. And so it looks like, I'm going to share the results here. Oh, it didn't. I don't know if you can see it, but it says 43% of you all are saying yes, you do have a mindfulness practice, but it's not consistent. 30% say no, not yet. And 27% say yes, you do. Thank you. Thank you for that. Awesome. That's awesome. Okay, let me get rid of that. Okay, so when I think about teaching mindfulness, so I'll just share. I've had my own mindfulness journey from roughly the last decade, or 10 to 12 years. I've been practicing mindfulness. I'm also a yoga instructor as well. And the way I think about mindfulness, and as you already know, my latest book is on the topic. So this is something I'm obviously very passionate about. And I'm going to show you, I'm going to first describe this 4-step process, and then I'm going to simplify it in a couple of different ways so that I want it so that when you leave today, you've not only practiced, but that you have in your head a mnemonic that allows you to remember how to do it. So I'm hoping this will be helpful, useful for you as you move forward in your lives, in your careers, etc. So first, I'm going to describe it and explain it, the process that we can do. And this is one of many, but I'm just going to share that this is the way I like to start off teaching it. So this 4-step process is, first, you have to pause, right? First, rather than, if lots and lots of things are happening in your life at one time, or maybe you're feeling bombarded by either emotions in the room, somebody's feeling some kind of way about something, or you've got so much on your plate, or you're, feeling distracted or nervous or anxious, or thinking about the past or thinking about the future. This is one of the ways that mindfulness can bring us to the present moment. So the first step is to pause, sort of acknowledging what's going on around us, right? The second is to notice. And so noticing is both what's going on in your environment, but also notice what's happening in your body. The third step is to breathe. And then finally, you release. So the breath is your inhale and your exhale. And as you inhale, you're these are not necessarily, I put them as 1, 2, 3, 4, mostly because they're 4 things to remember. But the idea isn't that they're necessarily in this order consecutively. You're pausing, you're noticing, you're breathing. And as you're breathing, you're also noticing what's happening in your body. You're noticing what's happening around you. And as you exhale, you release. It's almost like a softening into the present moment. Okay. And so I'm going to just go through. So when you pause, it doesn't matter the situation that you're in. The only thing you need to remember is that you have an opportunity to practice mindfulness and to pause, right? The social justice activist in me loves mindfulness so much because it's free and it's available to everyone at any moment and at every moment, right? So just be thinking about the fact that it is for everyone. Mindfulness is for everyone. It's an opportunity to learn what's going on, learn about yourself, to learn about what's happening in your body. I am a social scientist. And so when I first came to mindfulness, I was sort of thinking along those lines in my head. I was wanted the evidence. I wanted to think about the intellectual aspect of it and to understand it from a biological standpoint of what's happening in our brains. And I learned a lot about the brain and all of that. And really, as a social scientist, what I think about is that our bodies give us all kinds of information. And most of the time, especially in the westernized world, we're sort of taught to be cut off our body from our head, and that our intellect, our brain, is prized. And that below our body doesn't really matter. Our bodies really are just used as almost like a pedestal for the brain in our head, and that our thoughts are most important. Well, as I started to learn more about mindfulness and its effect on our bodies and our health and wellness, I started to focus on what are the messages my body is telling me that I've been ignoring for a long time. And with that, I've learned so much more about myself, about how to calm myself down in stressful situations, how to be a better leader, because I am open to listening in different ways. I project, I work on projecting an open-heartedness where people are feeling more willing and able to interact with me. And so that completely shifts the way I am, the way I show up, and the way other people respond to me, if that's helpful. So the first step, this pausing, is just remember that you can pause and you can practice mindfulness, catching yourself in the moment, right? To respond rather than react, right? The second part, this noticing piece, is to check in with your body, scanning your body from head to toe and identifying any place that is constricted, contracted, feeling anxious, feeling tense, feeling, closed rather than open, right? Looking at your body, noticing your breath. Is your breath shallow or is it peaceful, right? And we'll talk about that. We'll practice that in a moment as well. Noticing your thoughts, checking in. Are your thoughts really negative? Are they thoughts that are putting you in a circle, a downward spiral of negativity? I'm not supposed to do this. I can't do this. I'm too much of this or too little of that. Any of those kinds of thoughts, just to check in and notice that those thoughts are not helpful, right? They're really not helpful. And so what are some other thoughts we might think? Not in terms of just being positive about everything. That's called toxic positivity, where we just jump into, these quote unquote positive thoughts. I'm not talking about that. I'm saying notice the negativity, notice any negative thoughts that might be coming up, maybe asking the question, why is that coming up now? What's triggered those thoughts? And you can learn so much about yourself just from asking some of those questions along the way. You can also check in with your emotions. What's your emotional state at any given time during the day, right? Are you upset? Are you happy? Are you excited? Are you nervous? Are you all of those kinds of emotions, checking in and living intentionally rather than sort of going through your day on autopilot. This is the opposite of autopilot, right? This is really being present, but in a peaceful way, not in a directed and a harsh way with yourself, but more like, coming with curiosity, noticing with curiosity, and without judgment, right? The breathing, as I mentioned before, insight meditation often focuses directly on the breath. We use our breath as an anchor. One of the things I like to talk about is the fact that the reason that we often use breath as an anchor is because we will have our breath forever, right? Until our last one. And so it's something that will always be with us, no matter what it's doing. Like our breath might be fast-paced, maybe slow-paced. It may be, you might be short of breath. But you still have a breath, and it's doing its thing, right? It's doing its thing. It's allowing us to inhale and exhale to continue to live in these human bodies, right? And then the idea of releasing is, I think about this as an intentional focus to releasing, to softening into this moment. Where can you soften your muscles a little bit so that you're just settling in, grounding yourself, noticing your body and all of that as you release your tension, any tightness, etc. And as we practice, I'll actually take you through this process as well, right? Okay, should I pause for a moment just to see if there are any questions? Because I have a few more things. Robin or Jamie, is there anything that needs to be addressed before we go on, or should I keep going?
We do have a question in the Q&A if you want to take a quick look.
Sure.
Got a question here from David. Is reflecting on the day in a journal considered mindfulness? Because it's past focused rather than present focused. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Beautiful question. Yes, very good question. Yes, when you're journaling, what can come up is your past, but it also might be, you might journal focusing on the present moment. How am I feeling right now? In fact, oftentimes when I'm journaling, I will do a body scan and say, and literally, either type or write, depending on which journal I'm using, my shoulders are tense right now, or I'm feeling some constriction in my chest, so it is very present moment focused. That doesn't mean when you're journaling about a past experience that that's not mindfulness. That's also mindfulness. But typically I always try to come back to the present moment and see, what are you going to do even if you're writing about the past? How does it affect your present moment? And so then you can explore that. With curiosity and non-judgment. I see the question about toxic positivity. That's a whole other talk I could give, but very quickly, when we think about toxic positivity, the word that comes to mind is, have you heard the term Pollyanna? If you've heard that term, it's sort of saying, well, everything's just, butterflies and roses, and, there are no dandelions and no, no problems in the world. Everything is just wonderful. And sometimes you might feel that way, and that's perfectly great. But when somebody is struggling with something and somebody else says to them, oh, just relax, there's nothing to worry about. And you think to yourself, really? That to me sounds like toxic positivity. Hard to say sometimes. So the idea really is that we want to be thoughtful about how we are, how we are showing up for people, especially when people are struggling. I definitely want to, I'm definitely trauma informed, coming from severe childhood trauma. And so when I speak, I always think about, what is it like to show up knowing that there's trauma in the room? There always is, right? Depending on, no matter what room you're in, chances are someone in the room, if not you, is likely there's some trauma that has been experienced by someone in the space that you're in. And so with that, to think about what does it mean to really show up for people and with an open heart and listening, right? I wanted to give you a couple of ways to think about so that you will remember, and then I will take you into a practice, and I'll stop sharing my screen. But here's a few different models. The first one I wanted to share with you. So I gave you the first one really was the 4 steps, right? But this is a quick way to think about it. The ABC model. The first is awareness, right? You're aware of what's going on around you. Again, you'll see that the 4 steps that I talked about are enveloped in this ABC model, right? They come up. The first is awareness, being aware of what's going on around you and what's going on in your body. The B is breath. So you want to focus on your breath. You want to focus on calming your breath, perhaps, right? That's a great mindfulness practice. And then the C could be any and all of these. You're trying to calm yourself. So it turns out if your exhale is longer than your inhale, it actually tells your brain that you are calming the parasympathetic system. You are lowering your cortisol level, which, as I'm sure all of you know, your cortisol level is your stress hormone. So you're calming your system down. Being conscious here, there's another C, is being conscious of what's going on, being conscious of yourself in the world, right? How connected you are to other people. Perhaps if it's a religious or spiritual connection for you, maybe that's your connection to the universe or connection to your source, energy, whatever works for you in terms of thinking in that moment of just a feeling of expansion is really what it is. So you're calm, you're conscious, you're connected to the broader world. So this is one model that you could use that might be helpful for, oh yeah, how do I'm stopped at a red light, or I'm waiting in line. What was it again? You know, really all I'm asking you to do is to pause and breathe, but this is a way of thinking about it. Awareness, A, B, C. Awareness, breathe, and trying to calm yourself down. So that's one model. Another model that I love, these are models I created. This next one is called the 10-second vacation. Super simple. As I said before, if your exhale is longer than your inhale, you're going to calm your system. So really what you want to do is to pause and notice. You're going to inhale for 4 seconds, exhale for 6 seconds. And I call it a vacation because even though the things around you may not have changed, your relationship to what's going on in your life has changed. So now all of a sudden, 10 seconds later, first of all, you can do this with your eyes open. You can do this when you're in a meeting, if you're feeling stressed. Maybe there's a lot of things happening all at the same time, and you can focus on your breath and count to yourself. It doesn't have to be seconds. It can just be any count of 4 as you're inhaling, and then make sure your exhale is a little bit longer. And all of a sudden, you are in a calmer state to respond to whatever's going on around you. So I love to use this as a leadership tool, because that's really what it is. Again, you can do this as if you're in, you're presenting to a group of people, or you're about to, do something that is causing you anxiety. You take this 10-second vacation, and all of a sudden you are in a different, you're in a different relationship with what's about to happen, or how you're moving forward. So that's really the process. I'm going to invite us now to practice, unless there's any questions before we practice together. Robin?
Oh, I think this is great. No, we're ready. We're watching and ready.
Oh, wonderful. Okay. So even though, as I said, a 10-second vacation, when you get practiced at it, it really will only take 10 seconds. what I'm going to do with you now will take longer than 10 seconds because I'm going to explain it as I go. So you'll have more knowledge and more information when you either do a 10-second vacation or use the ABC model, whatever it is, as you, after we close out today. So I'm going to invite folks, if it's comfortable for you and available for you, to sit in a chair, so you're in a seated position. If you need to stand, if that's better for you, that's fine. If you can put your feet on the floor, that's always great. If you can't, that's great too. It's whatever is available to your body at any given moment, right? And as we always say, especially in yoga, the practice begins when you honor where your body is. So if there's any cue that I give you that doesn't work for you or work on your body, please allow it to go in one ear and out the other, and just focus for a moment. If you can, focus inward, but just calming yourself. If you would like to close your eyes, it's a beautiful time to do that. If for any reason that doesn't feel good to you, doesn't feel good on your body, I invite you to gaze gently down, maybe a foot out in front of you. And just pause for a moment. And just notice your body. Notice any tension in your body. Any nervousness, any anxiety that might be showing itself. And just notice your breath. Is your breath shallow or is it long and drawn out? I'm going to invite you to shrug your shoulders, bringing your shoulders up towards your ears on an inhale. And then as you exhale, see if you can drop your shoulders back and down, away from your ears. See if that opens up your chest at all as you pull your shoulders just slightly back. Again, if this works on your body. If your feet are on the floor, just notice the connection between where your feet are and where the floor is. And notice the relationship between them. That this is a grounding practice. If your feet are not on the floor for whatever reason, notice whatever is closest to the floor. So maybe it's your hips on the chair that you're in. Just notice the connection there. Just putting your attention on where your hips touch the chair. Maybe it's where your back is sitting against the chair. These are grounding practices. It's noticing where your body connects with the earth. And as you focus on your breath, I'm going to invite you to take a deeper inhale. Maybe perhaps you can count to 4 at your own pace. And as you get to the top of the breath, maybe hold it for a second, just so you really have inhaled. And then as you exhale, slowly let your breath come out. And count for a count of 6 or more. It just needs to be longer than your inhale for your brain to acknowledge that you're calming your parasympathetic system. And so keep going in rounds like that, where you're inhaling maybe for a count of 4, and then exhaling for a count of 6. And just notice where you are focused in on the breath. Some people focus on their chest. Maybe your chest is going up and down on your inhales and exhales. Maybe it's underneath your nostrils where the air is coming out of your nose. Maybe it's your belly as it inhales. If you're taking deeper belly breaths, your belly may be extending out as you inhale, and then as you exhale, your belly comes back in. Just notice. And if it's comfortable for you to put your hand on your belly, you could actually notice the difference when you do take a belly breath. When you push against your hand as you inhale and allow your belly to expand. And then as you exhale, see if you can go ahead and see your hand, feel your hand coming back in towards your abdominal cavity, this whole area. And take that for a few rounds as well. And then I'm going to, as you do that, I'm also going to ask you to notice your shoulders. And if they've started to creep up again towards your ears, see if you can bring them back and down as you continue to inhale and exhale. And then I'm going to invite you to do one more thing in this practice. And that is, especially if this is easier to do if your eyes are closed, if that works for you. If not, that's okay. Notice where your skin ends and the air around you begins. And you might not, especially if your eyes are closed, you may not be able to pinpoint any specific place unless you're in a breeze and you can feel the cold air or something, or by a heater and you can feel the heater blowing against your skin. We can't often feel our skin, which in my mind also allows us to know that we're actually so much bigger energetically than just our bodies, than these bodies that we're in. So if you think about, let's say, a candle perhaps burning within you, and as you inhale, just notice the candle flickering. And as you exhale, see if you can expand the light of the candle to go to all the areas in your body, within your skin. And then in your next inhale, just notice the light. And then as you exhale, see if you can expand the light to beyond your skin so that the light takes up the space around you. And again, as you inhale, noticing the light, and then as you exhale, expanding even beyond so that the light fills the room that you're in. And in your own time, you can grow that light bigger and bigger till it's literally as big as the planet. I'm going to invite you now to just focus on the candle within, bringing it back, bringing the light back into your body, and knowing that whatever the experience you're having right now, you always have access to it. It's always available to you. I'm going to invite you to take one more deep inhale. And as you exhale, I thank you for your practice. Feel free to flutter your eyes open. And welcome back. And in the Q&A, when you're ready, if you feel like, could you write just a word or two about how you're feeling right now? Thank you, Tracy. Namaste to you. Peaceful, aware, calm, and sleepy. At peace, calm, and in control. You're very welcome. At peace, calm, refreshed, centered, relaxed, empowered, centered. Beautiful. This is beautiful. Love the feeling of light, so calming and free. Expanded. Wonderful, Josh. That's great. Thank you all so much. Yeah, I'm going to bring it back to Robin to ask if you have questions that you'd like me to to respond to now. Yeah.
Hi, hello. I'm trying to bring myself back. I was really being very intentional because it's hard to calm me down. I'm always on the go. So thank you so much, Dr. Samuels, for this mindfulness practice. It was awesome. I do have a couple of questions. I think that we had some questions also within the chat, but it sounds like you've answered those. Everyone's peaceful, mindful, really enjoyed the practice. How can we, I know there's some online resources that we can tap into for continued mindfulness practice, but how can we connect with you? If viewers want to connect with you or work with you, what can they do to establish that with you?
Yeah, I had a feeling you might ask that. So I did, I'm going to share my screen so you can see. Here's a few things here's some resources. These are my books. The latest one is The Mindfulness Effect. They're available on Amazon. I also, the 25 mindfulness practices in this book are also available on the Insight Timer app, which some of you may know of. You can download the app. I think that you have to pay for that use of the app, but you get thousands and thousands of mindfulness practices. And there's a bunch of different great apps, Calm. There's all kinds of different apps, but if you can look for me, just type in Dena Samuels in the search, and you'll find some of my meditations there. This book, The Mindfulness Effect, also has an accompanying journal that goes with it, so that has questions that I asked throughout the book, so that it provides a way of, I call it a journal and practice planner, because it really is, how do you incorporate mindfulness into your life? So those are some resources. You can also get access to these online on my website, denasamuels.com. And then I just want to share with you some of the ways that I try to be of service to folks. I have private coaching, and I specifically focus on envisioning your future. I also do group coaching with organizations, and really it's about leadership development. And more specifically, trauma-sensitive, inclusive leadership development. That's really what it is. I also have what I call Get Fed. The Fed program is a certificate program where maybe you're in your organization, somebody has tasked you with leading a diversity, equity, and inclusion discussion, and you're thinking, how do I do that in a way that is going to be most effective and most productive? So I have a certificate program. It's an 8-week program, details about it on my website. It just so happens that my next cohort, my next group of folks who are going through the certificate program is starting next Thursday, a week from today. So if that's something that you're interested in, or your organization wants you to do it, feel free to reach out. Again, you can get to that through my website, or just email me at dena@denasamuels.com. Either way. And then here's my website for a complete list of trainings.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And one other question. So there was a question during the presentation of what happens if you're unable, like you're really busy, you're unable to have more than just 2 or 3 minutes. And I know there was the 10-second vacation, but they want to know, how do you intentionally quiet your mind if they're having trouble?
Yeah, and so timing's always an interesting question, because I hear a lot of people say, I don't have time to do mindfulness, or I don't have time to meditate. And I don't think you understand exactly what meditation is, because when you have spent even 2 or 3 minutes a day meditating, or I don't know about this clearing your mind. It's really calming your mind. That's really the way I like to look at it. Paying attention, intentionally calming your mind. That's to me a better descriptor of what we're trying to do here. It actually clears you. You have more clarity. You have more focus, so that when it comes to doing tasks throughout your day, you're much more efficient. Your brain is, and there's tons of studies and research that show this as well, that you're better able to do your tasks more efficiently. So therefore, you're actually saving time by spending time meditating. It can be, I started off with an app. I liked the app because it tracked every day that, oh yes, I did it again today. I did it again today. And I really liked the app I used. It was called Stop, Think and Breathe, I think is what it's called. It's a wonderful app. And I started off with 3 minutes a day. And so it tracked me for the first 30 days. And then I could have kept using it, but I had gained so much. They have guided meditations based on how you're feeling on that day. And after 30 days, I knew I didn't even need to track it anymore. There hasn't been a day that's gone by. That was 12 years ago that started. So 3 minutes a day really is all it takes. And you can see a shift in your life, the way you're showing up, the way the way you are with people, the way you're interacting. It's just an amazing shift. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, Dr. Dena Samuels, we really appreciate you being with us today. I'm not sure if there's any other questions. Yep, there's one more. Can you put the name of the meditation tracking app here? Also, someone, Julia asked that. Julia, we can type that answer in for you. And then I'm excited. Thank you so much. We hope to see you again. And for all of our attendees, we will be meeting monthly on usually our next meeting is February 9th, which will be an initial mini series for self-care with Dr. Hedgespath. So we're excited about that. Watch for that on social media. You'll also receive an email in about 3 days that you can sign up right within the email. So we're excited. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to the ACT team at act@ingenovishealth.com on any of the offerings that we have as far as our webinars. We will be having something for everyone at least once a month. And we're so excited to start this journey with you. We look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.